I got early access to the new M2 iPad Pro, and oh boy, do I have some thoughts. Me having thoughts on the iPad. Who would have thought? This video is sponsored by Paperlike. So let's start off with the chip that's in this iPad Pro. It's the M2 chip. This chip has 15% faster CPU, 35% faster GPU, and 50% more memory bandwidth. Memory bandwidth is actually a really important feature because of virtual memory swap. So the iPad can now use empty storage space essentially as extra RAM. So that extra memory bandwidth, basically that memory being faster than the M1 version, pretty important. So a couple of apps that were announced alongside these M2 iPad Pros were DaVinci Resolve and Octane X. Now, DaVinci Resolve is a high-end video editing application. This is stuff that's used on TV shows, commercial shoots, documentaries, like high-end stuff. This isn't just like YouTuber video editing. This is high-end video editing. And DaVinci Resolve is now coming to the iPad. Now, I don't know all the specifications of it. It's not out yet. We just know it's coming in sometime in Q4. So I am curious to see, like, is it the full version of DaVinci Resolve? If it's not, what's missing? Are there limitations? So those are questions I have. But I am very excited to see that these Pro apps are now coming to the iPad. The other one that's coming is Octane X. And if you aren't familiar with it, it's a 3D modeling app. It's really cool. Again, another professional app that can do really high-end things right off the iPad. Now, neither of these applications are exclusive to the M2 iPads, but obviously they will run best on them because the M2 is faster than the M1. I am slightly biased. I'm really excited for Resolve, but that's because I'm a video editor. That's why I'm biased. I had to stop editing video on my iPad. I did it for about 4 years. I had to stop because of some issues I had with it, but I'm really excited to give it a go again and try it out and see if, hey, can I move my editing workflow back to the iPad, or at least move a majority of my editing workflow back to the iPad, because I honestly miss editing video on the iPad. The other app that is coming is Affinity Publisher. So Affinity Publisher is an app that people use to design documents, websites, books, magazines. Like it's a big deal in the publishing world. And that is coming to the iPad now. And I'm really excited to see that. It's not something I will personally use, but the more pro apps we get coming to the iPad, the better. And obviously, the faster the iPad you have for these big pro applications, the better they will run. My hope has been, since the M1 iPad Pro came out, now that they're kind of in lockstep with the Mac using the same chipset and stuff like that, app developers would be like, okay, the iPads have the power now. They have the extra RAM, they're not like, 2 or 3 or 4 gigs of RAM. They have 8 and 16 gigs of RAM now on the iPad Pros and the iPad Air. Hey, we can bring these professional applications to the iPad now. And honestly, that hope that I had for that looks like it's coming to fruition. Now, I will say, Apple, it's your turn to bring your Pro apps to the iPad. The signature feature of this iPad is Apple Pencil Hover. When using the Apple Pencil, you'll see a preview of whatever you're about to draw before the Apple Pencil ever touches the screen. Kind of cool. This will change in apps like Procreate, so when you're hovering the Apple Pencil, it'll show you a preview of your brush and the color you have selected before you ever put the pencil down on the screen to actually make a stroke. Since I have early access to the iPad Pro, Procreate hasn't been updated to support this feature just yet, so I can't really show you Procreate specifically. I can show you Notes, but I have seen a demo of Procreate running this, and it's very cool. So right now in Notes, it's kind of interesting. Notes obviously uses Pencil Kit, so you have things like the pen tool, the highlighter, stuff like that. So you can see what the brush stroke is going to look like. You can see what the color is going to be before you ever put the Apple Pencil down on the screen. To me, this feature is really for people that draw on their iPads, whether professionally or even on an amateur level. Like if you really enjoy drawing on your iPad, this feature is for you. It's not for somebody like me, and that's okay. Not everything has to be for me. But there's a few people I know that use their iPad Pro on a professional level that do like comic book sketching, storyboarding, like stuff on a high end, and I'm really excited to see what they do with this. So maybe I should talk to some of them and have them on the channel. I'm also curious to see what developers do with this feature. Is there any kind of interesting feature that they can add to their app that's beyond like, hey, we're previewing like the brush or we're previewing the color of what's going to happen when you put the Apple Pencil down on the screen? For me, I mostly do handwriting, so seeing a preview of what the stroke is going to look like doesn't really do anything for me when I'm doing handwritten notes. This video is sponsored by Paperlike. This is the new Paperlike version 2.1. The big focus of this update was to focus on clarity. So any grainy look that you might have got in the past is gone. So I have the new one here on my M2 iPad Pro, and I have the old one here on my M1 iPad Pro. And it may not show up in video, especially since I color grade my footage. Sitting in front of them, I can see a big difference between the two. With version 2.1 of the Paperlike, it is now manufactured in Switzerland. When using a Paperlike, you still get that textured feeling when using the Apple Pencil. So it feels like you're using a pencil on a piece of paper instead of plastic on glass. It's a massive improvement if you use the Apple Pencil. Version 2.1 of the Paperlike is a fantastic upgrade. I'm excited to put one on my M1 iPad Pro. I held off just so I could do this comparison, but I will put a link in the description below to where you can go check it out. My thanks to Paperlike for sponsoring this video. So there's a few minor updates to this iPad Pro. First off, it comes with a braided cable in the box now. 2 thumbs up for me. Big fan of braided cables. I've never liked Apple's plastic cables. They always fall apart on me or turn yellow. I just don't like them. Braided cables are the way to go. The iPad Pro also now shoots ProRes video. I don't shoot video on my iPad. I honestly don't know anyone that does. If you do, let me know in the comments below. If you shoot video on your iPad, this feature is totally for you. You can shoot high-end video on your iPad now. For me, it's just not for me, especially when I have the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Like, it's just a lot easier to hold in my hand than a 12.9-inch iPad Pro. A lot of the core features of this iPad are the same as the M1 iPad Pro. You can get up to 2 terabytes of storage. The 1 and 2 terabyte options both have 16 gigs of RAM. All the other storage options have 8 gigs of RAM. I kind of would have liked to see the 24 gig option of RAM come to the M2 2 terabyte version. The 2 terabyte one is extremely pricey. I know that's the M1 version that I bought. So it would have been nice to get some extra RAM for the price. They both have a Thunderbolt port, so that means you can plug in fast external drives or plug into Thunderbolt monitors or Thunderbolt hubs. That's really nice. The 12.9-inch version has the Liquid Retina XDR display. Basically, it's just mini LED. It looks really nice. Now, the quote-unquote blooming issue that like took over the whole like press cycle when the M1 iPad Pro came out is still there. Like, you can still see, like, if you're pitch black and you have something white come on, there's still some blooming. But that's just mini LEDs. Like, that's just that display tech. That's what that does. The only real way to fix it would be to completely go to OLED. The other thing is 4 apps and Stage Manager. It's the same on the M1 iPad Pro and the M2 iPad Pro. I was actually kind of surprised by that. I thought the M2 iPad Pro would have at least gotten like 5 or 6 apps in Stage Manager since it has a little bit more power to it. And they have the same color options, silver and space gray. So boring, so boring. When it comes to the iPad lineup, every year it seems like either the hardware is exciting or the software is exciting. It can never be both. It's got to be one or the other for some reason. This year, it's really about the software. I'm going to have a full detailed walkthrough on iPadOS 16 a couple hours after this video comes out. So I'll put a link to that in the description below when it's live, or you can subscribe. The big thing is Stage Manager. So Stage Manager, you now have windowing on your iPad with apps. So you can have up to 4 apps on your display at a time. Windowing, you can move those apps around. There's a bunch of asterisks to that. I cover it all in the iPadOS 16 walkthrough. I'm not going to rehash it. But In the future, the iPad will also be getting external monitor support. That's not shipping alongside iPadOS 16 when this video comes out and all that stuff. It is coming in a future update, but I will make a full video about that when it comes out. I am really excited for that. It was there in the beta for a little bit before it was pulled temporarily, and it was really nice to use. This update really reminds me of the 2020 iPad Pro. Though I think that iPad Pro update was a little more exciting because we also got the Magic Keyboard announced alongside of it, but I'm kind of separating that out because that also went to the 2018 iPad Pro at the time. These two iPads weren't really that big of a deal for people that had upgraded the previous year. If you already own an M1 iPad Pro, there is not really much of a reason to upgrade it unless you really want the Apple Pencil hover feature. Or if you have a really heavy creative workflow, then you might, and I'm stressing might, benefit from the M2 chip. This clearly wasn't the big, exciting iPad Pro update a lot of iPad users were hoping for. And there was a lot of hardware features that were left out of this iPad update, like the landscape Face ID camera. That's such a bummer to me. Also, more battery life. I would love to see the iPad, especially the 12.9-inch iPad Pro, go beyond the 10-hour battery life quota that has been around since the very first iPad. It's okay to go past 10 hours. If you're in the market for an M-series iPad Pro, this is a great place to start. I don't see these iPads, feeling old or sluggish anytime soon. They have a fantastic chipset in them. But if you already have an M1 iPad Pro, there's really not much of a reason for you to upgrade. My thanks to Paperlike for sponsoring this video. If you liked the video, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and have a great day.